you could literally die tomorrow. And do you really want your last words to be like 5 ways to exercise from home without feeling like you're exercising? No one wants that to be their legacy.
What I did was I started writing for myself, and then what I do in the editing process is I edit it for the readers.
The more you become vulnerable in your writing, the better your article or your poem or your book.
So hey everyone, I recently ran a poll on Instagram asking what I should cover for my YouTube channel, and I got a lot of requests that I should do a talk with my writing group, with my friends who are in my writing group, and they specially requested Itxy, Emily and Buse that we should have a conversation around writing. So this video is all about that. And before we dive straight in, I'd like you guys to, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Right, who goes first?
Okay, I'll go first.
I have no idea what to say.
Okay. And I've been writing on Medium for 2 years now. This month, I've been writing for 4 years now. I started with a personal blog, and then realized I hated blogging, and then I found Medium, and I joined only because I wanted to make money writing. But then but then I realized that it was actually a really good platform, and obviously I ended up meeting all of these women, and yeah, that's basically it.
Right, I'm gonna jump in. I don't, what year is it? 2021. So I've been writing on Medium for 2 years. But I've been writing since I was 4. I mean, I've written stories about a dolphin who was a psycho killer. I've written stories about a fairy who died on a windowsill. But I've also got regular writing platforms. I've got Medium. I've run co-run a storytelling group with Jordan Gross, big fan, on LinkedIn. What else have I done? I haven't really done much else. If you want to see me being weird online, Twitter, that's where I'm at. And other than that, I'm just
so she's extra weird.
Extra weird, which is weird because I can't get weirder than the weird that I am, but I do, and quite frequently. But yeah, so I've been a writer for as long as I can remember. Not well, but I've been doing it.
Well, yeah, I started writing on Medium. I guess it was 3 years ago, and I started to publish basically what I was writing at the university, and then I got hooked, and I started to write about culture and personal stuff and general topics. And then I went on Medium to experiment writing, and then I realized I really love it. I wanted to improve everything and everything related to writing, and I started to write even poetry, which I know they basically suck, but I'm trying. So yeah, basically that's all.
It's so interesting that I met all of you ladies on Medium, but all of you have been writing longer than that and not just on Medium. So I didn't want to keep this interview strictly related to Medium. It's mostly about being a writer and all these experiences that writers have. So the first question that I'd like to ask all of you is, what is one writing lesson or one lesson related to writing that you learned from experience?
Okay. One thing that I learned is that I'm gonna give that advice that you love, Em. So I started writing because I graduated from high school and I didn't want to go to college and I didn't know what else to do with my life, so I just started writing, and I realized I actually liked it a lot. And at first I was just kind of doing all the cliche stuff that all the beginner writers do, all those lame ass topics. But then I started journaling too, and then I started writing fiction. And I realized that writing became a way for me to express just myself. And so now that I write, writing for me is how I process everything, from emotions to experiences to it's just a way that I process. And so whenever I write, even on Medium, I never write for the reader, which is what everyone tells you not to do. But I can't, like, I've tried writing for the reader and I can't do it. Like, it's just, to me, it's, I take whatever story I want to tell and I write it for myself. And the first draft is always terrible. It's like a journal entry. Like, it is complete shit. So what I do now is, before I would publish it like that, and then I would be surprised when it would get no reads. But what I did was I started writing for myself, and then what I do in the editing process is I edit it for the readers. So I literally like flip it from all those times that I use I switch it to you. Or when I talk about certain experiences, like sometimes I'll go off on tangents, so I'll erase them and I'll try to come up with like experiences that the reader can relate to. But yeah, that's like the biggest thing I've learned is that not everyone, like, there's no process that is 100% right for everyone. So I'm going to continue writing for me because that's what works. And then I'll edit it for the reader because the reader is not typically going to give a crap about what you have to say about only your life. Like, you have to relate it back to their own experiences.
That's so amazing. You know, I totally believe, I totally second this, that write for yourself and edit for the reader. I've actually never heard anyone talk about it, but it's so important because when you write for, say, some other motivation, like you're writing for money, it becomes very apparent by reading the article that your heart is not in it. But as a writer, if you write for yourself, then the reader will definitely be able to relate. So that's really amazing advice. What about you, Emily?
Mine's not so much a lesson about writing, but a part of the process that I've just come to accept, because every day, and I mean this every day, even on days when I don't write, which is far and few between, but I will wake up with this debilitating fear that overnight someone's come in and pinched my ability to write. And I thought, oh my God, there's something wrong with me, this isn't right. But it turns out that's just a level of like imposter syndrome. And for so long, I used to try and battle it away and try and think, okay, I've got to fix this, I've got to get rid of this, this can't be normal, I need to not endure this anymore. But actually, it is just part, for some, maybe not everyone, but it is just part and parcel of the process of being a writer. You are going to doubt everything you do, and that's fine, that's normal. You might genuinely think like the tooth fairy has gone rogue and come in and stolen your talents from you and you've got nothing left. But the only way to overcome it is not to overcome it, but to write anyway. And then when you write, you kind of prove to yourself, oh, look, I could do it. I could do it again. You've got to take it day by day, knowing that tomorrow you're probably going to doubt yourself again. And maybe the next day you won't, but then the day after you will again. So instead, just let it happen, be debilitated for 3 minutes, have some porridge, and then get writing. And then just prove to yourself that you can still do it, because you can, because it's literally impossible for you to fail at writing as long as you don't stop writing. So that's pretty much it.
I love it. And it's so true that no matter where you are in your journey as a writer, you'll of course feel imposter syndrome. So, you know, something that I do when I feel imposter syndrome, someone recently told me this quote, that if you don't do it, someone else will. So it's better not to give someone else the opportunity, right, and do it myself.
I like that very much.
Right. Buse, what about you?
I guess for me, really the important lesson I can say is how to learn language. English is my second language, so like I don't read in English. So when I write, or more importantly, when I used to write, I always wrote as full of, you know, academic terms, like terms and like heavy language, that like long sentences that you read in the books. And so of course, like nobody wants to read this kind of articles like written by this heavy language, like complex sentences. Medium, like the language is like more simplified. So like while writing, I have to simplify my language, because like you need to target everyone, not only a specific type of persons to communicate basically. And like Emily said, like, oh, so I know some like using the language, and themselves. Like they always like more than native writers, like native language is English. Like they doubt us a lot. Like they always think they are not good enough and stuff. But like I think it's like all the process, and like by writing, while trying to simplify your language, by trying to learn how to use your language, and while reading other writers' works, I think it can. I don't want to say it can be overcome. Like it's not like something to be overcome, but like I think it can be like you can adapt your own language according to the things you read, basically.
That's something I can relate with as well, because I'm not a native speaker, and the initial articles that I wrote, I got this feedback from many people that this is not how a person who speaks English talks in real life, because I used to use big words and synonyms of simple words. And what you said about simplifying your language is a very important thing. Even I had to learn that, and reading other writers and using some books or apps that help you. Hemingway has been a great help in this direction. Like it has helped me shorten my sentences and not use too big words. So yeah, those are amazing pieces of advice. So I would like to move on to the next topic, which is about editing. So Itxy already talked about it, that you edit for the reader. So I'd just like to ask you again, like what exactly is the importance of editing, and how can editing change the face of an article once it's written?
I'll go again. I think the most important thing about editing is cutting things down, because I like when we're I think the writing process itself should be completely unfiltered. Like you shouldn't worry about the amount of words you're using, the amount of times you're repeating certain words or phrases, using curse words. Like don't worry about any of that. Like literally just get the words on the page. And then in the editing process, that's when you have to be really strict with yourself, especially because it's your own writing, and so cutting it out is going to be like, it hurts. But so like, for example, the introduction always has to be rewritten, and it should always be aimed toward the reader. Like the goal should be to capture their attention, like no matter what. I don't care what you're writing, like you need to hook the reader right from the start. And then the way that I go up like from there is typically my first drafts are like terrible, like complete shit. And I always have to rewrite and reorganize. So I just ask myself, like from a reader's point of view, like what would they care about and what would they be interested in? Or no, what would they care about? What would they not care about? And so I just go like line by line, like cutting out the stuff that I know will bore them, and it's not always easy. Like that's why it's also important to get feedback from others. Like if you can start a mastermind or find at least another like editing buddy, just at least one, so you can get, because I consider myself a good editor, but even then, like I'm not perfect, and obviously I need like a new set of eyes to look at it. So yeah, just go line by line and ask yourself, like, will the reader care about this or will they not? Or like, have I already said this? It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of practice, but as long as you like actually try. I know some people who just edit in like 10 minutes and it's obvious, like, so like just take your time with it, and the editing process should be longer than the writing process, or else it's like your article is probably gonna be crap. But yeah, so edit yourself and then find someone to give you feedback.
Yeah, I love that advice. I can totally second that, because my first drafts are also so bad. I sometimes feel ashamed of sending it to other people to edit because they are so bad. But yeah, you're very right. Having a community helps. So Emily, I recently saw one of your stories on Instagram where I think you sent it to Itxy, where you didn't even know what title you would put. And so honestly, what's your take on like having a community or a co-editor or editing buddy?
Until I met you guys, I didn't genuinely believe in editing. I didn't think it was a thing. I thought it was a myth. Like
same
it's I was reluctant. I mean, I don't even cut my own hair, let alone cut out my own words. I am unable to like edit for the life of me. That's why I've roped Itxy into a lot of help. But to me, when I think of editing, I know it's important because It reminds me of, this is a weird tangent, but it reminds me of when I used to work at a hotel. I used to work for weddings, and I would sometimes be in charge of the big knife cutting the wedding cake. And like when you think party is your reader, and you're cutting the wedding cake, you've got to serve up with these nice, tiny, little, delicious slices of cake. But actually, when you cut a wedding cake, a lot of it collapses. There's scraps, there's stale bits that have gone crusty, and you have to trim them all away. Fortunately, I got to take them home with me as well, so that was a benefit. But you have to do it. You have to like sever and carve and trim and condense, and it hurts. It really hurts watching all this go to waste. But to relieve that, what I try and do is like copy the bits I've cut out into a separate document, even though they'll never do and I'll never look at it again. They're kind of immortalized in that Word document forever. So that helps a little. And it is important because unless you are writing in a journal for yourself, your reader isn't going to care about the same things that you do to the extent that you do. So yeah, damn it. Supposedly editing is a thing and we have to do it.
I love the, idea of going to a separate document. Even I do that, especially when I'm writing a longer project, like a book. I have this another document where I keep those pieces, which I know I'll probably never use, but at least I know they are not gone forever.
Yeah.
So I was asking you, like, what's your take on editing in general and having a separate pair of eyes on your article?
Well, I am okay. I am real terrible at editing too, because like it's already okay when I word something I experience, it's already like something different for me. Like I create that, and even creating that in another language is difficult, and I can't kind of edit and paraphrase it over again. So in that sense, it was really helpful for me to find native like writer friends, my community right here on that screen. So like, because like so many times I knew like I was writing something, but I knew I was writing the sentence as like I was basically translating it from Turkish. So I need to know that if it sounds English enough or not. So I was like, I usually send my like my sentences or paragraphs to you guys to ask that, like, does that sound English or that and I was completely asking Emily like, is British or American? I mean, is the spelling right or not? In that sense, editing, like while editing, having a community is so important. While writing personal stories, I find editing more important. Okay, it's a personal story. So it is like there are so many emotions and ideas included, and it is so subjective, and so you can't really take another perspective to look at your own article. Like it is kind of your child, and you can't criticize your child very objectively. So for example, I send you like I send you an article back then about a personal story, and like Anna, for example, you gave me that perfect advice saying that I know what you mean because I share the same cultural background. I understand you, but like someone who is not coming from similar culture wouldn't understand that. So try to explain it better, and try to make your reader feel what you are going through. So I think in that sense, in especially personal stories, editing and like taking advice. I know like it feels like I also don't feel comfortable when I ask something from people, but like in that sense, asking from another point, like you are basically asking another point of view, and it's really important if you want to make your reader feel your article.
Right, that's very true. And what you said reminded me of this. I was recently reading a book called Made to Stick, and there they discuss a concept called the curse of knowledge. So when we know something, we always assume that even if we explain it in one line, the reader will understand, which is not actually true, because we know what we know, the reader doesn't know that. And this is not just specific to editing, but writing in general also. So it's very important to keep in mind like an average reader whom we are addressing in whatever articles. And I totally agree with you, Buse, on this, that personal stories especially, it's very important because it's easy to get blinded, like what part we know and what part the audience doesn't know. So yeah, that's really cool That's a really cool advice. So I would like to ask you, all of you, something about life as a writer that most people don't understand. It can be a good part, a bad part, anything that you wish to share.
Right, we're going in the same order.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I love writing, right? Like I can literally I'll sit down and it can be really fun. But the thing is, it can also be really freaking boring. Like, because at the end of the day, like sometimes I'm like, I know I have to write, but the idea of just sitting and typing is like the most boring thing in the entire world. Like, yeah, it once you get into it, like, you know, you start seeing like the images play out in your head and it gets, you know, more interesting. Like you're watching a TV show or something. But it's the starting process that's always the hardest, because it's not always fun, and not even talking about the fact that it's difficult, but the fact that it's actually boring. And so I mean, like when it comes to that, like you literally just have to push through. Like at the end of the day, it's just a choice you make. Like you either write or you don't, and sometimes it's easier to make that choice, like when you're feeling extra motivated or something, but other times when you're lazy or when you're not in a mood and it's just easier to like binge watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine or something, like that's when it gets hard. But it's like, the thing is, like, I know some people believe that when they find writing boring, or when they find that they aren't, like, don't like it, they start thinking that they're not actual writers. But it's like, parents don't even like their kids all the time. That doesn't mean they don't love them, you know? So this is how it works. Like, you're not gonna love writing all the time, and it's fine. Like, and if it's boring, it's boring. Like, just push through. Or sometimes you don't even have to. Like, sometimes what I'll do is I'll find something fun to do first, and then once I'm like in a better mood, I'll sit down and start writing, and it's like easier. So yeah, writing can be boring sometimes, but it's like, it's normal.
Yeah, I can totally vouch for it. It's normal, because I feel that literally at the beginning of every article I write, I feel that what is the point of writing? It's so boring. I don't even want to start. But of course, the first step is always the hardest. So, Emily, what's your take on it?
Oh, we got a guest. Do you mind? I'm on camera.
Oh my god.
What was the question? Oh, about life. Oh, for God's sake.
Life as a writer.
Life as a writer.
Basically, I think one of the hardest things is that you feel, as a writer, we're always writers, but you feel this pressure to be a writer in everything that you do. So like when you write a birthday card, or when you tweet, or when you email, or when you message someone like, I'm on my way, you feel this pressure to do it in such, like, even conversations with your friends who aren't writers, they look to you, think, well, you're the storyteller, tell us a story. And I mean, I get that, because we're dealing with such a universal medium of communication, but like, an expert frisbee player doesn't serve his dinner by frisbeeing it onto the table, and like trapeze artists, they still walk places, and a plumber will still, you know, he'll brush his teeth not with a wrench but with a toothbrush. And it's just like, you're allowed to be other things. You don't have to be a perfect writer 24/7. You can be an introvert, you can be nervous, you can be anxious, you can hate people, you can hate, this is controversial and I don't agree with it, but you can hate reading, you can hate words and books and stories, you can be whatever you want, as well as being a writer. You can be a cat owner and love cats because they're great, it seems, banana. And so yeah, you don't have to be like this on-form writer at every minute of the day, only when you're writing. So that's one thing that because I felt this pressure for so long, but actually it doesn't matter. You can be your regular old self whenever you need to be as well.
I feel that pressure when I'm talking to you specifically, because you're like, every message you send is the whole story. Like,
it's because I'm a moron who likes to talk about myself.
And now, how am I supposed to respond? Like, okay, yeah, I understand.
Thumbs up, that'll do. A good emoji.
I will send that, yeah.
You know, nothing you type seems to justify the kind of warmth that Emily's message sends. So, you know, whatever you write will be less. It won't be enough. That's what I feel.
You guys.
Definitely. You guys. You're so humble.
What about you, Buse? What's your take on life as a writer?
Life as a writer. Okay, I will go with something different. Not like okay, not like something that people don't understand or stuff, but like I don't know if you guys have realized like we observe a lot, like because we are writing, like that, like there's that pressure. Yeah, right. I mean, like sometimes I'm just on the bus and trying to have a like peaceful 20 minutes until I reach home. But like I start describing people in my head, like because like so that I can use them in my book, which I will never write. It's like it seems so. But then they occupy my mind a lot, like extreme, and then yeah, you keep observing, and then what was I going to say? Wait, I forgot.
Live TV.
Yeah. I'm so glad it's not live. So yeah. And yeah. Then that you observe, and then like not everyone can relate to that, and it is something that you have different as a writer.
Yeah.
No, I'll do that too, but I'll notice what I'll pay attention to is people's reactions to stuff, like how they look, how they're reacting to certain situations, so that I can include it in my story.
Right.
Expressions, yeah.
I do that all the time. Even dialogue, like how people talk in real life. Observation is like, it's very important as a writer.
And it makes you so extremely sensitive. Like you try to take all of people's reactions and emotions, and you try to integrate them to yourself, basically, when you feel overwhelmed. Because like, I mean, we are writers, we are already sensitive, so like, and we are trying to other people's emotions. Nice.
I think it also has its perks though, like when it comes to like certain stuff, like if you're sitting in nature, like maybe not everyone else will pay attention to all the details, like all the sounds and all the smells and all, like everything you see. So it's like, I mean, like it's very easy like romanticize any moment ever because you want to make sure that you're capturing every detail. So it's like it has its perks too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course, but like when you are with a normal friend, it becomes like you become. I mean, they don't understand you. Kind of, they don't see the word as you see, and then you become kind of wrong or like cheesy, or we can understand, we can relate to that when we are together, but like it becomes kind of cheesy,
Yeah, definitely.
That's why you got to find friends who appreciate your weirdness as a writer. You know what Emily said? I wish someone told my friends that if you're a writer, you don't always have to be a writer. Because whenever there are some social gatherings, they always look at me and say, recite a poem, you write poems. I don't memorize my poems. I just write them and I forget them. So it's very hard. Like writing something and performing something is very different, right? But people often assume that if you wrote it, you'll be able to memorize it anytime. So that's one thing, yeah. So, I would also like to talk a little bit about the role of community. We already talked about how having someone else read your articles or your stories before reading helps you as a writer. But aside from the writing aspect, in general, like how does being part of a writing community help? So I would like to know your take on it.
I think that the most like helpful thing is realizing that okay, because writers are so self-conscious. There's a lot of self-doubt involved. There's a lot of thinking of like, this is shit, like what I'm writing is shit, I will never be a good writer, stuff like that. And I think that the great thing about having a writing community is that you realize that literally everyone struggles with the same thing. Like it doesn't matter if you're a new writer, if you have fucking 50,000 followers, like it's like it's imposter syndrome, like it's just, it doesn't go away. And it's just it's like it's good to know or it feels great to know that it's like you're not alone, or that there's not something wrong with you. Like it's so common, and so it's important to open up about these things with the writing community. Like you don't just want to share your stats and all your wins and all this like good stuff. Like no, like that's not how it works. Like if you get honest about all the hard stuff, then it plus it like bonds you too. Like you'll be closer to all these writers and stuff, and it just makes the whole process easier knowing that you're not the only one who feels like an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter helps in this regard a lot.
Yeah. Is it me? Is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, it's kind of like what Itxy said. Like, you know how girls supposedly sync up when they're, together. Well, I think writers sync up. You tend to have existential crises at the same time, and then you ride these highs together, and you can support each. And it's kind of like, being a writer, you've got to be a reader, but it's like it's one step better because we're getting to watch each other during the writing before we're the reader. So it's like we're watching the process of being the reader. So. And like my mom even said to me before the pandemic, she's like, you really need to, get out and see some people. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm finding my people online and I found my people, because we all get it. We look at the world with the same, writerly rose-tinted lenses. And so it's just nice to have your, inconfused blood relatives together. And that's what you guys are. And I think it's just important. And you don't even have to talk about writing things. Like that. I think it's important that you don't actually a lot of the time because you're helping each other stop thinking about writing for a bit as well. So it is very important for everyone has different reasons for needing a community, but you need one.
Yes. Nothing beats that sense of belonging, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the one.
But also if you don't talk about writing, you'll get ideas for writing.
Definitely. I mean, how many articles did we write because of what has been going on in our time? So yeah, you get ideas to write about. And yeah, I agree with you guys, and especially in the sense that having a community makes you realize that you are not alone, and it's a tough process. And I mean, writing is a lonely process. So when you have people that look at the world from your eyes, and you realize that it is that you realize you are not alone, and it shouldn't be that difficult. So you start to enjoy process. So many things, so many things from you. For example, like Anna, when we were talking about language, using our second language as our main writing language, and you shared your struggles, you shared how you overcame the struggles, and how you started your own YouTube channel, which is going great. And then also, for example, I have so many Turkish writers on Medium. Sinem is a great writer, and the fact that she has my own mother tongue, makes you realize that you can do it. I mean, and then when I talk to Sinem or other Turkish writers or writers who use language as you using it as a second language, you become the part of the process. Before I was feeling out of place, but now I feel like I also belong to Medium as well. So if it makes sense. And yeah, and also you basically have friends. I mean, I'm so glad for our community. Yeah.
Nothing beats that.
No, nothing.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, love it. We're all together. We're all in love. When did we even meet?
All together in this.
When was it we got?
Mm-hmm.
We found each other from. It was from Twitter, pretty much.
It was from Twitter. I think. Okay, it was around February or March.
Yeah.
Between February and March, I remember I texted you why don't we?
Did it? Was
the
it
best
only this
decision
year?
of my life.
It feels like it's been longer than just a few months, though, doesn't it? Really, that's how fast you bond, because you bond through your work, which is your craft anyway.
I'm surprised that it's only February. That means it's been 4 months.
In 4 months.
Way longer than.
Oh my God.
That's so weird. I love it. It's definitely the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be hard. When you Buse literally just texted Emily, and then Emily and I had been DMing for a while. like I think people always get intimidated when it comes to reaching out to other writers on Medium, especially if they're like more popular writers. But like you just start a conversation. Like whenever I want to talk to someone new, I'll and don't contact someone whose work you've never read or stuff. Like that's just weird. Like if you want to build an actual connection, like make sure you have read their work and that you like them as writers and stuff like that, and then send them a message and just be like, just compliment them, like just like be honest about how you feel about their work. Like I really appreciate you for writing about this, or I love this specific article because blah blah blah. And it's like everyone is human, like all these writers, even if they don't seem human. And it's like they want connection as much as you do, like so you literally just have to reach out and just like say hi. Like it doesn't have to be this whole ass process.
Exactly. I remember, for example, when I first read, I had never reached out to people before Emily. Like I read her article and I was so fascinated by the way she writes and by the verse choices, and I always said like her figurative language is great. So like I was like, okay, I need to compliment that, right? She has to know that she is great. And then we noticed that we have so many similarities, so many common points, like Twilight and stuff. And then you start to talk about these things, and then you like I said, like you basically have the greatest friendships.
I know. Well, and when you did that as well, it showed to me like how easy it can be and how quickly you can bond with someone, because like I've been in love with every one of your poems. The way you see the world is the way everyone should see the world. And it's not a bad thing to say, holy crap, I fancy your words. You're allowed to say these things. Right. It's quite nice to hear them as well. But it's important. I think it's important to distinguish between like the two types of communities you can fall into. Like I think most people think they need a Slack group where they're sharing articles and they're editing and that's it. There's nothing else. You can have a community where you're just chatting. You don't have to like be so formal about it. You can just chat crap with your mate. Right. They're just writing mates.
About life and about Twilight, about books.
Exactly. That's all you need. It doesn't need to be this pressure. You don't need to have an article to send to them before. Just chat. Just make friends. It can be one person, 12 people, whatever you fancy.
And also I find this incredible. Like for example, I love you through your articles now. Like Emily's articles, I was reading Itxy's articles, Anna's articles, and when you read someone's articles, you kind of have a sense about that person, and then you meet and you start to chat about boys and girls and like books and education and like normal usual stuff, and you know them in another perspective. And then they share an article in which they are becoming extremely vulnerable, and you are like, oh my god, like have I known that person really well? Like what is that? Like which issues does she have? Like so, and I love that so much. Like when one of you guys share something personal, and like it becomes like I feel it more because I know you as my friends, and I was like, wow, no, I didn't know Emily that well. Look at the articles and stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so this was really very interesting and very enlightening. So, before we conclude, I would like to ask a very cliche question to all of you. Is there something that you would like to say to a person who's just starting out as a writer? Anything, not advice, maybe something based from your own story or your own experience.
I would say I just ruined the line, but anyways, I don't care. I will just say that don't be scared. Don't be afraid of being vulnerable, because when you are the more you become vulnerable in your writing, the better your article or your poem or your book sounds. So like I know that's a big issue for writers, and we are afraid of opening up. But like the paper, in that case, Medium page is the only place that we can really open up and then talk about our deepest, like our the messiest issues and stuff. And don't be afraid of that.
That was beautiful, Buse.
Did you just clap? Oh my god.
50 times. 50 times.
I would say I would say I think that like one of the biggest struggles in the beginning is that you want to seem as professional as possible, which is why people fall into that trap of like using like vague vocabulary and stuff like that. But I remember one time a friend of mine, Lexi, she's a screenwriter, and she told me, she was like, I know people always tell you to like what's that phrase? Cut your darlings or
Kill your
That's your
darlings.
darling.
Yeah.
yeah.
Cut your darlings.
And she was like, I know people always suggest that. She's like, but don't be hesitant to keep in your voice, like the jokes, the sarcasm, the cursing, like that's it's by keeping all of that stuff in that you realize what your voice is. And like one thing that helps like figuring that out is journaling, is like unfiltered, like just you and the page, like shit that you won't show to anyone else. And like I wish that like if that's what I would tell myself in the beginning, is to not be afraid to actually be myself. Like I don't have to be this fancy person who knows everything. Like I can say whatever I want. Like use like I think, you know, I think Emily's obviously the biggest example here. Is like she has a very unique voice, and she doesn't cut anything out. Or like or yeah, like I probably recommend studying her writing, because she's like the jokes that she uses, they're very like her, or like just like the specific words. Yeah, and so like just don't be afraid to keep in the stuff that you think people won't care about.
Can I go?
Yeah,
No, I need to go. To me, this is probably a bit over the top, but you could die tomorrow, whether you're a writer or not. You could literally
Thank you.
die.
Thank
and
you
do
for being so
no,
positive.
unless you're Edward Cullen, you probably
I knew you would say that.
couldn't miss opportunity. But you could literally die tomorrow. And do you really want your last words to be like 5 ways to exercise from home without feeling like you're exercising? No one wants that to be their legacy. If you want to write about like a fictional story about a guy who's so averse to personal space being infiltrated that he peels off his own skin, or Sue Sylvester from Glee bullying your mom on stage in a roast battle, these are things I've written about.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Write what you want to write. I know it always seems cliche and like, oh, but if you're a freelance writer, you've got to write. I understand all that, but the main point is taking a step back from context. Just write what you want to write, because if you get hit by an ice cream truck tomorrow, these will be the last things you've ever written. So if you've got a book you want to write, get writing it and take it day by day. Stop trying to think you have to write a book in a day. Take it page by word, but you could die tomorrow, so just write the things you want to write about. Like genuinely screw everyone else. And I think us lot, I think we do that for the most part. I know sometimes we feel like mediums staring at us, making us have to write a listicle about crap we don't really care about, but more often than not, we don't give in. We write about the things that actually mean stuff to us in the ways that I'm proud of all of us for that. So
I know
we gotta just keep doing it.
Yeah, sometimes we are afraid of sharing them, but we are not afraid of sharing them, at least among each other.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Exactly same.
Love it. So quickly summarizing, because all of you gave amazing tips. So Buse said, don't be afraid.
Oh yeah, you were summarizing like per person.
Yes. So, it's like, don't be afraid. Figure out your own voice. Don't cut out too much. And follow your heart. Write what you want to write. So, if every writer followed these, the current articles that we get to read would be so different and definitely so much better if people actually wrote about what they cared and not what they think would work. So yeah, that's really amazing advice, and thank you so much for taking out time to do this. I'm sure it was very helpful to all the people who are watching. So thanks guys. Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do we know when it's off?